Hello, hi there. It's Eric O'Sullivan, Reverend Sully, ordained on the internet. The caveat, as always, please do not burn your hands holding on to my hot takes. If you do, that's on you, pal. I want to talk for a moment about. Hold on. I got it one. Because if you don't have a copy of your United States Constitution in printed form on your bookshelf, available at all times for you to read, well, again, that's on you, pal. I want to talk for a second about guns. Guns and 2A and reality. Yeah. And, okay, well, let's get into it. And, it's a beautiful day here in America. And, Veterans Day had just passed as well last week. It's a great, I think I'm going to butcher the saying. If you want to thank, if you want to thank your freedoms, thank a veteran, especially if you're speaking English, and that's just meant to be jingoistic and patriotic. As you can see by my Captain America, I'm a pretty patriotic individual. You can't sell me on the notion that America's evil. I mean, people still flock to America after. People don't flock to evil. Oh, maybe they do. Maybe there's something in it for them and attractive in this evilness. But let's read the Second Amendment real quick. All right? It's very short. It's basically one sentence. It's one sentence. It's a structured, it's written on purpose, methodically, with forethought. And, was it written in 1787? And yeah, and it still abides today. Let's see. The Amendment number 2. A well-regulated militia with a capital M, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, capital S, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed. Period. That is the Second Amendment. It's short, it's sweet, it's succinct, it's and then there's interpretation, huh? That was written in 1787 or ratified in 1787, so it's basic. There were probably a few drafts of that along the way. A damn good cup of coffee. Okay, I'm a city boy. I've been born and bred in Boston, Massachusetts. I was raised in the South Boston projects, public housing, red bricks. As you know, Red Man and Method Man, the bricks. Yeah, I grew up in the bricks, yo. So having guns in a city is a lot different than having guns out in the country, out in rural areas. It's night and day. I know from my upbringing in South Boston that what I'm very fond of saying, that I can't be sold on bullshit. Part of that includes that if you have a gun in the city, you're either a cop or you're up to no good. Seriously, I mean, what do you need a gun or a rifle or a semi-automatic or something with a magazine that can hold 100 rounds within the city limits? You're either a policeman or you're up to no good. You're a thief. You're a gangster. You're a drug dealer. I mean, now out in the country, that's a different matter. you might have coyotes that are, eating your chicken, or or you hunt. It's a different life. There's a huge problem now in our 2021 and going forward, that the encroachment of these urban values into rural life. I mean, the insistence that, you know, there should be bike lanes in a rural town. I mean, it's cute, but is it solving traffic patterns, such as the congested city? Who knows? But I'm getting off base here. We're talking about guns. We're talking about 2A, and we're talking about reality. I have a direct experience, unfortunately. I have a sob story. Yeah, I got a sob story about guns. When I was 15 years old, I witnessed a double homicide. Just walk you through it real quick. I was 15 years old. I was on the third floor apartment of my aunt's. It was my aunt's apartment. It was a Saturday. I was always sent over there in the weekends so she can help me with my homework. I'm a brilliant person, terrible student. Um, so I remember hearing this pop, 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 pop from outside. I run to the window, and there's this guy in a black duster before Columbine made that fashionable. And I grew up with GI Joe. All right, so I know my small arms, and I know my rifles, and I know my handguns. This man is definitely holding an Uzi submachine gun, or an Uzi. I'll get into this I'll clarify this in a moment, okay? And what happened was that there was a woman holding an infant. She had her hand out like this, and there were non-native, non-English speakers. And where and who they were, that's not the point. The point is that she was holding the infant, and she was begging for her life. And pop, 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 and the woman stopped screaming. The baby continued to wail. I saw the guy walk up the street a bit and come back to the baby still wailing, and he reloads. And then pop, 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 pop. The baby stops screaming. Around that time, the neighbors started noticing, so the assailant, the gunman, ran into someone else's apartment and held up there. And I remember this guy in a red pickup truck. Now, this was 1987. Yeah, it was 1987. I was a freshman, and it was October of 1987. I was just begun high school. I was a freshman in high school, and I was 15 years old. And I can remember this guy in a red tow truck. Turned the corner, and basically tried to put the truck in between, the victims and the gunman. The gunman basically held up in someone else's apartment, and he killed himself. He shot himself, and that was that. The next day or two, in the news came out, it was discovered that it was about money. It was a family squabble. There were family members, and it was about money. And also, what this guy did was he had an illegal, or was it like semi? I don't know the legalities of this shit. Sometimes, man, he had this Uzi. Now, the civilian version of the Uzi was not automatic, was not semi-automatic. It was single shot. What he did, though, he was obviously some kind of gun nut or gun aficionado, depending on where you weigh in, that he took a spring from a popular personal care device called an Epilady. It had a spring, a tightly wound spring it was hair removal, and the spring would vibrate, the hair would get trapped in the spring, and it would be pulled from the area you were trying to escape, manscape or chickscape, whatever you want to do it. If you took a segment of this spring and jimmied it, fashioned it inside of your single shot Uzi, you can convert it at home into a semi-automatic version, meaning when you pull the trigger, it would shoot 3 times instead of the 1 time, because now you have that, that recoil cause and effect. And so that was that. That was, October 1987. And I saw a woman and her infant get murdered with a gun. And that's having a gun in a city. I mean, that's where that comes from. If you have a gun in the city, what are you up to? Huh? So having guns, rifles, in rural areas is a completely different world. It's a completely different story. Now we come to, self-defense, 2021, public rioting, people on trial for shooting other humans, and where's this going? I mean, I believe this. I do believe in the Second Amendment, even though I've seen gun violence, and I know what the consequences of having these guns around will do. It's a scary proposition, too, to know. I truly believe that an unarmed populace will be easily overrun by a tyrannical government. And that's what the Second Amendment provides. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yet I'm a history nut. So this was written it was ratified in 1787. Back then, there were only muskets, flintlocks. They were a pain in the ass to load, fire, keep dry. The ordnance was a musket ball, or whatever you could be, whatever you could fashion into an ordnance. Samuel Colt didn't patent the revolver until about 1830. Okay, so the revolver with the single with the cartridge, the bullet that we know today, did not come around until the 1820s and 1830s. And 1780, 90, 0. That's 50 to 60 years. That's 3 generations of between the ratification of the Constitution and Samuel Colt patenting the revolver. And then comes the United States Civil War, which there were 2 radical advances in gun technology. One being the rifled barrel. Now the rifled barrel with its distinct how you fashion the inside of the rifle. I'm not an expert. I'm a high school graduate. I'm an idiot. But the rifled barrel gave greater accuracy and greater range to what before was, a messy affair. There's one thing that they don't show in the movies, and that's that gunfire sounds like rat-tat-tat. No, it sounds more like pop, pop, pop. And the other is that there was a massive amount of gunpowder smoke that obscures your range of vision. That wasn't a clean affair. That if you were to shoot something like the original Colt, there would be a magnificent plume of smoke, like obscuring your vision and your target. So what came was not just the rifled barrel, because and this happened during the Civil War. The mini ball, which was a new piece of ordnance to complement the rifled barrel, um, that basically, when like our modern bullet, when it hit the intended target, it will pancake and has a greater effectiveness. But also came what will become the machine gun. It would become belt fed, hand cranked, um, semi automatic to automatic level of of guns, of machine guns, the first machine guns. So when you see that the hand crank, machine gun in Old West, that's the that was new. That was innovation. And then in the early 20th century came the magazine clip, became the automatic, the 45 caliber, basically the Desert Eagle. That hasn't. When did that get invented? What, about 1912 or so? As I'm not an expert, I'm sure someone will call me out. One of my many right-wing gun nut friends. You know what? I need two wings to fly, a left and a right wing. And if it wasn't for these gun nut friends, we would be, in a sore place. I'm pretty sure that, when the shit hits the fan, that we're going to need our gun nut friends in order to protect us. What are we going to protect ourselves with? Our clever wits and our Twitter outrage? Yeah, right. Um, but for me personally, I don't know if I would ever own a gun. Um, I consider myself a pacifist. I've seen what violence does. I've seen what gun violence does. Um, Violence begets more violence. Yet, you need to be able to defend yourself, and you need to be able to defend your property, and you need to be able to uh, you need to be able to be responsible for your firearms. Unfortunately, with the the way that firearms are in America, there are so many that there. I mean, it's impossible to disarm the bad guys. The Look at the Mexican cartels. Where do they get such good weapons from? Well, they cross the border. I mean, they're very well armed. They're very well organized. Unfortunately, the Mexican police can't compete with the cartels, and that's partially the fault of our free country. And but then you look at something like Australia, which took away their guns, and now it seems that every modern society that had gun rights and then took away the gun rights of their citizenry ended up being some kind of tyrant. It happened in Soviet Russia. It happened in communist China. It's happening now in Australia. I mean, just wow. You want to talk about scary Orwell stuff. But hey, greater good. But it's those are opinions and those are beliefs. But I'm not getting into that. That's I don't have an opinion. All I know is what I know and what I see. And like as I said, this is just my hot take. And if you're gonna burn your hands on it, I can get you some Bactine. But what I'm not gonna do is back down. But what do you think? Do you own a gun? I've got plenty of friends out here on YouTube that are veterans that have had proper training in ordnance and in firearms that own guns. One of my oldest friends, I said, something once to him. I was like, "What do you know, you hippie?" And he was like, "Hey, dude, I own too many guns to be a hippie." I will always remember that because I'm like, well, he's a homeowner and he's a family man, and and he's a peacenik too. But like, really, you own guns? He was like, hell yeah. You'd be surprised. I've never fired a gun. I'm not interested. But I mean, One thing I do want to say, though, is about the Second Amendment, and historically, is about the well-regulated militia. That the founders, the founding fathers, they were against a standing army because every other country at the time, the nation state was basically a new concept. Before that, they were, there was royalty. There was England had a king, France had a king, Russia had a king, China had an emperor. It was about, they weren't nation states in the modern sense, but they had standing armies and standing navies, and that America being a new concept to being a free state and a free society, they were adverse to having a standing army. And the standing army didn't really come into effect until the War of 1812, to where we really needed hey, there needs to be a standing army. Now, the U.S. Marines have been around since 1776. I'm not going to get into an argument with a Marine over that. No way. But historically, rationally, America did not want a standing army or a navy, but becoming huge, becoming big, growing up, we had to grow up and accept that, we do need a standing army. So the militia morphed into what we consider today to be modern police departments and the standing army and the standing navy. So I do accept that there is a gray area in interpretation with the Second Amendment, because if you're going to have a gun or a rifle, don't you have to be part of a militia in order to qualify according to the letter of the Second Amendment? What militia are you part of? Is it well regulated? Or are you just an independent operator who just says, I can have a gun? I don't know. I don't think, I can't rationally accept that to an extent. I can accept that the idea of the state militia that's called upon in times of need, that you would keep your powder at the powder house, for big things like that. I mean, that evolved into our standing army, our standing navy, and our modern police force as well, our police departments. Because when America was brand new, we didn't have any of that. It was about a local constabulary and state militias who were called upon in times of need. And so how are we supposed to balance that? That if you're not part of a militia, should you legally have the right to have a gun or a long gun or a rifle? I mean, and therein lies the quandary for me. I'm all for making it as tough as you can to have a gun. That just anybody shouldn't drive a car, and just anybody shouldn't have a gun. I mean, in Massachusetts, we say that there is no right to drive. There is no right to drive a car. It's a privilege. But yet, in the Constitution, it is a right to bear arms, and which takes in consideration evolving technology. Because that's going to cover laser guns in the far future. Because it doesn't say guns, the right to bear rifles. I mean, it's about the right to bear arms, which could be a sword as well, which were part and parcel in the 17 and 1800s as well. But yeah, I'm getting a little long in the tooth here. This is getting longer than I intended. But what do you think? Give me a thumbs up if you like this kind of material. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't. Give me a subscribe if you can. I make positive content about pop culture. Um, I'm also an ordained minister. I'm very spiritual. I'm an amateur theologian, and I'm a professional chef. I make cooking videos. And but yeah, this is just with all the the usual polarization on social media, with the white hat good guys claiming this one's a murderer, and the, oh my gosh, the problematic people on the right, bad guys, you know, saying, did you even watch the trial and see the evidence, or are you just talking in clickbait? I don't have an opinion either way. All I know is that I'm going to rely upon someone with a gun to protect my freedoms, whether it's on a local level, if to a policeman, or God bless the veterans and those who have given their lives for our country to defend our way of life and our nation. That I have depended on people with guns, and we need to keep finding that balance between peace and war, and between the haves with the guns and the have-nots who appeal to some, to appeal to a peaceful notion. Because we're going to need these people with guns. We already do. We rely on them. This is a checks and balance. This is the American Revolution. The American Revolution, to me, wasn't just a one-time experience in history. The American Revolution, to me, is a constant turning, kind of like the revolution of the Earth around the sun. It's a perpetual motion, and this is just part of it. And thank you for tuning in. Leave a comment in the comment section if you have something to say. Let's continue the conversation. Thank you very much. And God bless our veterans. God bless our soldiers. And God bless the police as well. They got a tough job. They really do. Cheers.